So today we welcome you to join us on our presentation, which we titled Game On. And it will be presented by the students Diana, Joseph, Silvia, and I myself, Garima, will be the facilitator. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that our school, ACSENDA School of Management, is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations people. Land acknowledgements are a custom here in Canada. It is our way to acknowledge that these lands are originally belonging to the First Nations people who have been residing here since the beginning. We are but settlers coming in to develop our lives here on these beautiful lands. We have a very brief agenda for everyone. We will go through a round of introductions, give a background on the Climate Action Certificate Program. That is our main goal for today. My students will talk about the drawdown framework, the 4 levels of action plan before they delve into their own projects that they developed for this course. And then we'll have a short Q&A session as well. So to begin with, I would like to ask my team to introduce themselves quickly, and we'll begin with Silvia.
Hello, everybody. My name is Silvia Pichardo. I'm from Mexico. I'm currently in my 2nd term in marketing concentration. I have always been interested in climate change, so this workshop that ACSENDA bring me an excellent opportunity to learn more about it. Now, my colleague, Joseph.
Thank you, Silvia. Hello, everybody. It's really an honor to be with all of you. It's really refreshing to see so many people interested in this kind of topics. My name is Joseph Nateras. I'm also from Mexico. I'm on my 2nd last term here at ACSENDA. I'm studying international business management, and I have a bit of a background in sustainable development. Back in Mexico, I used to study engineering on sustainable development, so I'm very into this kind of topics. And I also, back in Mexico, I used to work in the recycling industry. I worked in the industry for 8 years. Let me welcome you, everybody, to our presentation. And now it's turn to my colleague, Diana.
Thank you, Joseph. Hi, my name is Diana Zuniga, and I am a student of hospitality management at ACSENDA. This is my 3rd term, and in Mexico, I worked as an event planner around 4 years.
Thank you. And lastly, I'm Garima. I'm the manager of the English Language Center. And the interesting thing for me to be here is that I actually joined the Climate Action Certificate Program as a student. So I studied with students, and then I came back to it as a facilitator. So it really feels an honor for me to be able to represent not only ACSENDA, but the course itself, because I worked with the organization that offered it with us. And so let's go back to our share screen. And to set the tone, let's watch a quick video.
Garima, we're not hearing the sound.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Let's see what's going on here. From my side, it's showing it's connected. Okay.
Garima, if I may offer a suggestion,
Yes,
You need
please.
to share with sound. There's a
Okay.
little key, yeah.
Okay, share sound. Now let's see if this works. Thank you so much, Louis. Now do we have the sound?
Some call me nature.
Yes.
Yes.
What's going on?
Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years. 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
Goosebumps every time I see this video. So just to set the context, this is one of the videos that is shared with all students taking the workshop, and it is the introductory video. It is to tell us that we are not the ones in power. We don't control nature. The Climate Action Certificate Program was offered to students, faculty, and staff members at ACSENDA and to our partner schools in conjunction with a grassroots level organization, Drawdown BC, that worked under Project Drawdown. Project Drawdown is basically based in the United States, with Paul Hopkins' book inspiring it, that came out, that said that we have the most comprehensive plan to combat the climate crisis. Taking it on, his team of researchers came up with solutions and ways to fight this crisis, and Drawdown was born out of it. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Joseph to walk us through a bit of the technical terminology that we will be using throughout our presentations with everybody. Joseph?
Thank you, Garima. Okay, we will talk now a bit about the drawdown framework for climate solutions. But before we understand the framework itself, it is important for us to understand the term drawdown. Is, as you have now in your screens, drawdown is the future point in time when levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere stop climbing and start a steady decline. This is the point where we begin the process of stopping further climate change and averting potential catastrophic warning. It is a critical turning point for life on Earth, according to Project Drawdown. As we have a bit of a background from our video, it is important for us that we come to this point of reverse the current trend of the emission of greenhouses that is getting the environment into severe decline, not because the Earth, as the video says, need it, but because us as a civilization, we need it. We need very specific conditions to foster very specific conditions for our civilization to thrive and continue. And with this on mind, this now is the drawdown framework. In order to reach the drawdown action, in order to reach this point in time that we call drawdown, we need actions to be taken on 3 levels. These are the 3 levels: reduce sources, support sinks, and improve society. Reduce sources, it means reduce sources of greenhouse emissions. It is how we can generate electricity, how we cultivate our land, how we make our food, how industry process everything, and all these have emissions of greenhouses. So the first thing is to reduce these emissions. The second one is to support sinks. That is to improve the quality of the environment, because vegetation, and especially in the oceans, there are a lot of algae that as a vegetation capture this CO2, capture these greenhouse emissions. So this is the second part. And the third one will be improve society, because through health, education, and equality for all, we can improve not only our way of living, but our way to live with nature, to commute with our environment, to be part of it and not to feel above it. And with this better understanding, we can have a severe impact towards the drawdown goals. Thank you. As individuals, we can select any one of the 3 levels that will help us to reach the point of drawdown. But in order for it to work, we need to have an action plan. Now, Silvia will guide us to this action plan.
Yes, an action plan allows us to situate our chosen solution to work at 4 distinct stages. They are individual actions, family and friend actions, community, local institutions and business actions, and lastly, law and policy actions.
Now that all of us understand a bit of the terminology and have an idea of what drawdown is, I will now welcome my students to present their final projects that they were developed for this program. First up is Diana.
Hi, everyone. I will share with you my experience in the Climate Action Certificate. As Silvia showed us, we learned how to develop an action plan. And we also learned different types of solutions that we can apply to contribute with the environment. With this knowledge, I prepared a proposal of an event to foster women education. It can be incredible, but lack women's education can affect the way of how society act regarding the environment. Because women play an essential role in the family's nucleus. With this in mind, this festival includes different activities to empower women with different conferences, and includes activities to get family integration, such as plant-based cooking class, family planning talk, gardening workshop, and activities of recycling and other environment educational activities. The main goals of this festival are that women can find themselves, women can get involved their families, and all of them can learn having fun. My favorite part of the climate change certificate was the final project, because my classmates and I could share our ideas and solutions for problems that we usually have in our lives. So this leads me to think that the acquisition of knowledge is the key to transforming the world. Now we will continue with Joseph's project.
Thank you, Diana. Okay, since I have background on sustainable development, the main topics introduced in the workshop were not that new to me, but the workshop itself brought me a unique learning experience by working in this in a more practical way and in a more move forward way. Because usually as a society and as individuals, when we face these very big problems that affect us in so many ways, we can easily feel overwhelmed. And this leads us to a freeze state where we are stunned and we cannot do much about it. So the workshop is focused on the game on philosophy, that instead of being a game over, that this is going to end us all, this is the opportunity for us to start and move into it. So with this philosophy in mind for the workshop, for my panel project, I proposed something related to recycling, because that's where my expertise area, and specifically for the polyethylene terephthalate plastic, that is the PET that we all know, that is very common in our daily lives. On every time you buy a bottle of water, soda, every time you buy strawberries or something that comes in these transparent packages, it's in our daily lives. So, because this is the most widely used plastic commercially and industrially, we have a lot to say in the recycling process. For starters, I like to use a motto that we have here in Vancouver, what is the disposal system have here in Vancouver. When you go to a bin, the bin says, "Bins don't do sorting, you do." So with this into consideration, I took the motto and we put it here, that bins don't do the recycling, you do. And my project is focused particularly on one aspect of the recycling process, that is the impact from the end user in the entire recycling process. Because when bottles arrive at the recycling plants with some product within the bottle, that is when someone puts any kind of trash inside the bottle before disposing it, it is discarded as a pollutant because it's not longer suitable for recycling. So another aspect is that if the end user crushes the bottle and compacts it, as in the picture we have now, it reduces from 20 to 30% of its volume. And this means simultaneously reducing transportation costs and time. And this can be translated into a reduction of emissions. A small action on the part of the consumers can define whether or not the product they have in their hands is properly recycled. A very simple action, like not putting anything inside the bottle or crushing it, can decide whether the bottle you have or the plastic you have in your hand ends up like a new bottle after recycling, or ends up in the ocean or in a landfill. So my project focused on a community in Mexico that is called Los Reyes La Paz. That's the community where I used to work. And I went there to promote good practices for proper recycling management among local government and elementary schools. I went to elementary schools that gathers the PET bottles and then sells them to explain to how the recycle process and in the impact of doing this crushing of the bottle and leaving it empty. I also went to a small business that buy the bottles and then resell it to some bigger centers to explain them the economic benefits of collecting the bottles, of collecting the crushed bottles, because this will mean a reduction on their transportation times and the transportation costs, but for everybody it means a reduction of the emissions. In terms of my experience with the workshop, it was very different from a regular class, since it is not mandatory. Only people with a genuine interest in the subject enroll. This also brings to us in the workshop instructors and staff, faculty, that gives to the conversation a higher level of engagement and maybe even a more mature group conversation. While having a practical project, the one that we are presenting, allow us to feel and see a real impact towards the drawdown goal. Thank you. Now I will ask Silvia to share her project with us.
Thank you, Joseph. The Climate Action Certification workshop helped to understand the current situation regarding the climate change. It learned that it's not too late to execute different climate solutions available for us to apply as individuals, in our family, community, city, and make it grow if we are willing to do so. My project focuses on the third level of action. It's improving society. As a mother of a girl and as a woman, it is alarming for me to realize that there is 62 million girls around the world from realizing their right to education. So my action plan in the individual field is to provide open education to my daughter, involve my husband in her education, and raising her in an environment of equality and equity. Keep myself continuous educating, and wall the talk by empowering my daily life decisions. My family and friend action is to make sure that all the girls and women around me have access to all education levels. Empower the girls and women near to me. Share knowledge with my friends by explaining them how educated girls contribute to economic growth and greater upward mobility. The community actions will be provide reproductive health care and early age in schools, allow access to high quality family planning, destigmatize the reproduction and marriage, that reproduction and marriage are the only roles for women in society. The policy action will be create a specialized abortion clinics in every city of Mexico and separate religion from sexual education. Our world needs people with new leadership that promotes unity, no fear, and no division, and encourage teamwork for a better world. I would like to share with you this quote by Helen Keller that for me summarized what I learned from this workshop. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. Thank you very much.
Now we will have the pictures of the celebration. These are some pictures of the celebration for concluding the workshop. From the workshop 2021 and 2022. And these are the references.
If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask us.
Yeah, I can ask a question if you hear me well.
Please go. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, one of your teammates was talking about the plant-based glass, if I'm not mistaken. Can you please elaborate on that topic? I'm just very curious on how this glass is developed and manufactured and so on.
I believe she was referring to a plant-based diet, not a glass. Are you referring to Diana's Festival of Learning, or are we talking about Joseph's recycling one and he just covered the plastic PET?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I mixed up some terms. I was talking about the Joseph part. Yeah.
Okay,
The
Joseph,
recycling
would you
part.
like to take this on?
Sure. Regarding bioorganic plastic, it was not plant-based glass. We can nowadays manufacture in most of the countries plant-based plastic, especially the PET, because it's somewhat like the recycling. Usually when you use recycled plastic to form new bottles or new any material, you cannot use 100% recycled plastic because it doesn't have the same consistency, the same density. So usually you can find a mix of virgin plastic and organic plastic, like the one that come from the avocado seed, the one that come from bananas, the one that come from coconuts. It's just that you mix virgin plastic and the organic one to compose any new material. I don't know of any specific company that make glass out of organic plastic. Usually are products that don't have a very long lasting life, because of course when you put organic plastic into any product, it's meant to be degraded, right? So when you use glass, like for windows or any other product, we use glass because it's very enduring, because it can be held for a long period of time. So when we use organic plastic to make something like cups or like plates or something like that, is with the consideration that you want it to degrade, that you are not expecting a long period of time for that product. So I hope this answered your question, or if you have anything further.
No. Yeah, thank you very much. That was an extensive answer. As I said, I just mixed up the terms at the beginning. So yeah, that was a 100% beautiful answer. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, I have one question. I think it's also for Joseph, is he's into recycling, this stuff, but it's more about maybe sustainable development at all. So how do you think which country from all over the world should start implementing sustainable development? It would have the biggest impact to the world to move our overall sustainable development of the world to another step.
Okay. First, I would like to make clear what sustainable development is. Sustainable development is when a society can fulfill its needs and can develop without compromising the next generation to do the same, right? But it has to have three main aspects into consideration: the social, the environmental, and the economic part. So if you don't cover these three parts, it is not truly sustainable development. With that in mind, there is very great discussion about exactly what you are asking, because of course the countries that are, let's say, the wealthier are the ones that have polluted the most, because they have reached this wealth through industrialization and of course pollution. And now there is this claim that a lot of developing countries are having a bigger part in this polluting aspect, but there is no consensus. There is not a final word or on which country should have the most efforts towards this. Of course, some say that those that have the highest emission of pollutants per capita are the ones that needs to get hands into this problem the most. We also could think that those countries with the most habitants are the ones that have most to say into this, because they have, well, because they have more people. You can think that they have most pollutants, but in reality, the pollution and the emission of greenhouse gases per capita is not, for example, usually United States have a higher rate of consumption and emission of gases than China, per capita, that is, per person. So in terms of sustainable development, this kind of statistics doesn't show us the whole picture, because reducing your emittance is not enough. Because if you usually, when you ask for a country to reduce their pollution, that means to reduce their industrialization level and their development rate. You are not asking them to, you are asking them to contract their economy, to slow down their economic progress. And this goes exactly against what sustainable development is, because while you need to reduce pollution and you need to integrate society, you also need to improve their economic status. So it is not that easy to answer, because there is no final answer on this. Actually, what has been proved to have more impact is when we focus on more local communities and not an entire country. Because at least from Mexico, or now that I live in Canada, when you say Mexico, you are not really putting all the people together in the same situation, right? Because countries, at least Mexico and Canada, are very big. So the people that live in the north is not the same that the people that live in the south. They don't have the same customs, they don't have the same level on consumption, they don't have the same level to access to water, to land use, yes? And we are very interconnected, but we are not all the same. So in terms of sustainable development, it's very interesting that there is a trend to bring forward the more traditional ways. Like, for example, in Mexico, the indigenous people have this very ancestral concept that is called el buen vivir, the good living, something like that, that it's practically sustainable development. In their own words, is how to make a community to live in tune with the natural cycles. And this really integrates more what sustainable development is. Because when you live with the natural cycles in your community, in your surroundings, you need to respect how much water you can use, because you need to respect the cycle of the water recycling itself. Because you need to respect the land use, you cannot overexploit it, and you will respect how much you can harvest and leave the lands to rest so you can later come on. And in terms of the economic, when you have a small community, there are a lot of small communities in Mexico that don't integrate into the national currency, that they have their own small little currencies and they are a bit more close, but they still have trade with the rest of Mexico. But these small economic currencies are easier to be well managed, to foster equality and equal growth in the entire community. So it's harder to do that in a national level, where you can find a lot of disparity, a lot of inequality, and especially a lot of unequal access to the resources. Because if we state one policy that everybody should pollute this amount or consume water this amount, it is not fair for the people that have access to a river. Well, it is not fair for the people that doesn't have access to that river, that use the same amount of water that the people that do. So it's a bit tricky to say that one country has more responsibility than the others, or that one country can improve this more than the others. First, because each country is very complex and diverse, and secondly, because in this global system, it doesn't matter if you pollute in China, you will have the repercussions in your own country. It doesn't matter if the rivers start drying in Mexico, because it will affect the United
Joseph,
States.
I just need to ask you to be more precise, because
Sorry.
has some limitation. I know that
Anyway,
this
it was
technical.
a really wide and constructive answer.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this
I'm done,
case,
sorry.
you will
Yeah,
take
it's
for
okay.
next.